It's actually a lot of people in their 40s and their 50s, like pre-retirement almost, who are cashing in on this home equity and they're realizing, you know, hey, goodbye. But all these people share a similar kind of mentality of the decline in society, the decline in the public safety, the decline in living standards in general. More and more people are choosing to leave Canada, and in this video I'm going to talk about why that is happening. You know, the number one reason that I hear from people time and time again is the cost of living, and that is the reason why people are giving up and they're leaving Canada. And secondary to that, we also hear about the political environment. I think a lot of people now are waking up, including myself, over the past couple of years, and we've all realized that it does not matter who you are handing the so-called baton to in terms of the next party, because you're going to be virtue signaled to no matter what, whether it's Danielle Smith or Pierre or Justin Trudeau, whichever side of the aisle that these politicians sit on, they're gonna lie to you and they're gonna manipulate you. And it's unfortunate that people fall for it and they actually think that, hey, this is gonna work, because the reality is it doesn't work, and people get sick and they get tired of what's going on. And in countries like Canada, you don't have any power when you vote, so the best thing that you can do is just actually leave and go to a different place, to a different country. A lot of people are opting to go to places like Costa Rica, Mexico, Panama, where I am right now. And it's good, I think, that people are realizing this and they're leaving. And you know, Andrew Henderson, founder of Nomad Capitalist, he also deals with a lot of Canadian clients. It's a lot of people in Canada that have built up this massive amount of home equity that are now looking to put the keys in and unlock and tap into that home equity. And the only way that they're gonna do that in reality is by leaving the country. Because if they stay in the country, that home is just going to remain a liability to them, and they're never going to realize any of the gain. The reality is it's a housing bubble, but the housing bubble is allowing a lot of people to make a great life in a different country, to tap into that equity and to get out. And because Canada doesn't even tax principal residence gains when you sell your primary residence, you can literally tap into that equity, realize that gain completely tax-free, and then leave the country. That does present a risk. You know, we saw the viral story that happened, and it was fake news, at least at this point from what we know. It was fake news, and this was the $25,000 fee to leave Canada. But as I said in the video when I covered that, I think that it is possible actually that you could see some type of tax regime come in, especially around the primary residence, because the government isn't stupid in the sense that they know a lot of people are selling their house and they're getting out of Canada. And a lot of these people have skills. That's why they can actually leave the country. It's because they have these skills, or they built up a business, or they have something. So they can go and take that. They can go to the United States, they can go to Mexico, they can go to Panama, they can go to Costa Rica, they can go to all these different places. And a lot of people as well, which is surprising, and a lot of people don't talk about this or realize this, is it's not just older people who are retiring. It's actually a lot of people in their 40s and their 50s, like pre-retirement almost, who are cashing in on this home equity and they're realizing, you know, hey, goodbye. The people who are 70 years plus year old are mostly snowbirds, and those people are dying out in Canada. Nobody can afford to anymore be a snowbird. It's incredibly expensive, especially snowbirds that went to the United States. Medical insurance is unaffordable. You can roll the dice on that, but that can end up burning you and bankrupting you, you losing your asset if you have a home in the United States. A lot of people are not doing that anymore, and the trends are changing for that. So you've got more and more people people though who are choosing to just disconnect entirely from places like Canada. And it's not just Canada. You know, when you come to places like Panama, you realize that there are people from Germany doing the same thing. There are people from the UK, Scotland, South Africa, Australia. It's not just Canada. But all these people share a similar kind of mentality of the decline in society, the decline in the public safety, the decline in living standards in general. And if you're retiring or you're near retirement, you're even 10 years away from retirement, you're trying to protect yourself in a way because your purchasing power is being utterly obliterated in places like Canada. And what people don't understand is it is an inflation tax. And even opposing parties to people like Justin Trudeau, they argue for 2% inflation. 2% inflation, guys, over 5 years is what? 10%. That's 10% of your purchasing power gone. And that's if you even believe the numbers that they're telling you when it comes to inflation. I think you can double that. So you're talking about 20%, which is absolutely insane in 5 years that you're losing in purchasing power. And the problem is, since the global financial crisis, there has not been the wage growth to back up any of this inflation anymore. So what has happened over the past 10, 15 years in Western countries is people have subsidized their income with debt. The accessibility to credit in certain countries like Canada has just become easier and easier and easier. And more relaxed, people can get more credit, and that causes asset prices to inflate. You really begin to understand this actually when you explore real estate markets around the world and you look at the lending and whether the banks are willing to lend, and you see the difference in price, and you realize actually the difference in price is determined by, are the banks willing to lend and how much are they willing to lend you. And in Canada it's exactly the same. The government subsidizes and uses inflation that they pass on to all of the people in the tax system to subsidize the banks and subsidize the mortgage market. And this has just been a huge slush fund for the banks who have enjoyed this. They've been able to write mortgages with literally zero to minimal risk, and they've loved it. And that is why credit has become so relaxed. Now, more and more it's tightening up, and that's what people aren't noticing. And we've also got real estate markets that have took significant hits over the past 5-6 years. So things are changing dramatically. We had recently the federal government saying that now when it comes to income qualifications for mortgage applications, they're going to be using the income directly from the CRA, which is the Canadian Tax Authority, instead of people producing these documents. And guess why they're doing that? Because so many people are using fake documents. That just shows you what a facade the housing market is. So many people use fake documents to obtain mortgages, and it's not like we haven't seen this rodeo before. We saw exactly the same thing happen in the United States, and it caused a massive global financial crisis. And it probably won't cause a global financial crisis, but it will cause a financial crisis locally in Canada. And more you are seeing the banks are tightening up and they're reining in their lending. They are nowhere as near relaxed as they used to be when it comes to lending. And that's because they've already been burned when it comes to commercial real estate, and they're continuing to get burned. And the more and more that happens, the worse it will get for residential lending. And like I said, when it comes to these asset bubbles, that's when you realize that, hey, it's not based on immigration or all these narratives that people say on social media because they don't have a clue. It's actually based on, is the bank going to lend you the money? How much are they willing to lend you? Because without that, you could have 5 million people coming into the country. It does not make a shade of difference because the Canadian Australian housing market and most Western housing markets are all based upon what? They're based upon leverage. They're based upon the amount of money that you can borrow. They're not based on cash. There's not loads of people buying with cash. And that's the facade that people don't want you to know. Sure, you could say immigration is having a massive impact if you're getting loads and loads of people who are arriving and everybody's buying cash and it's a majority cash market, but it's a majority debt market. So it's completely dependent on the banks. And that is one thing that real estate agents and pretty much all the mainstream economists do not understand, but they will understand in the end. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, you might want to check out this video here. And if you're looking for a VPN to get around all the censorship up there in Canada, go to expressvpn.com/market mania. From the tropics, I'll see you in the next one.